Hey there, econ warriors and finance fiends. It's your host, the guy who yells at graphs so you don't have to, back with another piping hot episode of Boss Economics World. Today, we're diving into the Eurozone's latest currency conundrum, because nothing screams economic chaos like a central bank sweating bullets over a strong euro while the economy's already on life support. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to expose the ECB's fumbles, roast their policy playbook, and, surprise, surprise, call out the government mismanagement that's got Europe teetering on the edge of another recession. Let's get this economic dumpster fire rolling. Alright, let's set the scene. The euro's up 14% against the dollar in 2025, hitting levels that have European Central Bank, ECB, officials clutching their pearls at their fancy retreat in Sintra, Portugal. Why? Because while a strong euro sounds like a flex, look at us, world, our currency's jacked. It's actually a one-way ticket to economic pain for the Eurozone. Inflation's already been tamed to the ECB's sacred 2% target, but now they're terrified the euro's rally could push inflation below that sweet spot, tanking competitiveness and strangling exports. ECB Vice President Luis de Guindos even went on Bloomberg TV to say that if the euro blasts past $1.20, it's game over. We can overlook it a little bit, he says, like a parent ignoring a toddler drawing on the walls, until the kid sets the house on fire. But here's the kicker, folks, this isn't just about a currency flexing its muscles. This is about the ECB and Eurozone governments bungling their way into a full-blown economic mess. And, as always, we're here to break it down from the surface-level drama to the deep, dark roots of mismanagement. So, grab your calculators, and let's dissect this economic clown show, layer by layer. First, let's talk about what's got the ECB sweating. The euro's on its longest winning streak in over 2 decades, and traders are betting it'll hit that $1.20 danger zone by 2026. Why is this a problem? Because a strong euro makes European exports pricier on the global stage. Imagine you're a German car manufacturer, your BMWs are already expensive, but now they cost 14% more for American buyers because the dollar's weaker than a soggy paper towel. Result? Fewer sales, fewer jobs, and a whole lot of economic stagnation. Now, the ECB's been loving this euro rally at first. Oh, it's curbing inflation, it's boosting the euro's global swagger. But now they're realizing they've created a monster. ECB chief economist Philip Lane told CNBC that the shift toward the euro looks durable, but you can hear the nervousness in his voice. They're not just worried about inflation undershooting the 2% target, they're terrified of what this means for an export-driven economy that's already limping along. ING's head of macro, Karsten Brzezinski, nailed it when he said, eventually a further strengthening of the euro won't only bring more disinflationary pressure but also the risk of economic harm for an already suffering export industry. Translation, the ECB's about to tank the economy even harder, and they know it. But wait, there's more. The ECB's already slashed its deposit rate 8 times, and now markets are betting on another cut to 1.75% before the end of 2025. Latvian Central Bank Governor Martins Kazaks even admitted, if the euro was to significantly appreciate further, this would weigh down on inflation and exports, which could tilt the balance toward another cut. So, let me get this straight, the ECB's solution to an overvalued euro is to make borrowing even cheaper, flood the system with more money, and pray the economy doesn't implode. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Why's the euro soaring in the first place? Spoiler alert, it's not because Europe's economy is suddenly the belle of the ball. No, this is all about the dollar taking a nosedive, and we've got one man to thank for that, Donald Trump. His 2025 tariff blitz, slapping massive levies on imports from China, the EU, and pretty much anyone who looks at him funny, has investors fleeing the dollar like it's a sinking ship. Confidence in the US economy is crumbling, and global investors are piling into the euro as a safe haven. ECB President Christine Lagarde tried to spin this as a pivotal year for the dollar, but let's call it what it is, a self-inflicted wound by the US that's dragging Europe down with it. Here's the data to back this up. According to the Bank for International Settlements, the euro's share of global foreign exchange reserves jumped from 20.5% in 2023 to 22.8% in Q2 2025, while the dollar's share slipped from 58.3% to 56.1%. That's a seismic shift, folks, and it's not because Europe's economy is booming, it's because the US is imploding under Trump's protectionist chaos. Just look at the US trade deficit, which ballooned to $1.2 trillion in 2025, up 15% from 2024, per the US Commerce Department. Meanwhile, Eurozone exports to the US dropped 8% year-on-year in the first half of 2025, according to Eurostat, as American consumers balked at the higher prices of European goods. So, while the ECB's busy panicking about the euro's strength, the real story here is how global economic mismanagement, especially in the US, is creating a domino effect that's hammering Europe. And guess what? The ECB's response, more rate cuts, might just make things worse by fueling asset bubbles and eroding consumer confidence. But hey, at least the euro looks shiny on the world stage, right? Now, let's get to the juicy part, the deep, dark roots of this economic mess. Because, folks, this isn't just about currency fluctuations or Trump's tariff tantrums. This is about years, nay, decades, of government mismanagement and central bank incompetence that's left the Eurozone economy as fragile as a house of cards in a windstorm. First, let's talk about the Eurozone's export addiction. Countries like Germany, France, and Italy have built their economies on being export powerhouses, with exports accounting for 47% of Eurozone GDP in 2024, per the World Bank. But here's the problem, when your entire economic model depends on selling stuff abroad, you're at the mercy of currency fluctuations and global trade wars. And instead of diversifying their economies, say, by boosting domestic consumption or investing in innovation, Eurozone governments have doubled down on this export model, leaving them exposed to shocks like the euro's rally or Trump's tariffs. Second, let's roast the ECB's policy playbook. For years, they've been obsessed with hitting that 2% inflation target, even if it means strangling the economy in the process. Remember negative interest rates? Remember quantitative easing? Those were supposed to save the Eurozone after the 2008 financial crisis and the 2011 sovereign debt crisis, but all they did was inflate asset bubbles. Hello, German real estate prices up 45% since 2015, per Deutsche Bank, and saddle future generations with debt. Eurozone public debt hit 92% of GDP in 2024, up from 86% in 2019, according to the IMF. And now, faced with a strong euro, their only solution is more rate cuts. It's like trying to fix a broken leg with a band-aid. But here's the real kicker, Eurozone governments have done nothing to fix the structural problems that make their economies so vulnerable. Take labor market rigidity. Unemployment in Spain and Italy is still hovering around 10% in 2025, per Eurostat, because labor laws make it nearly impossible to fire workers, discouraging hiring in the first place. Or take energy dependence. Germany's decision to phase out nuclear power and rely on Russian gas, pre-Ukraine war, and now expensive LNG imports has left its manufacturing sector gasping for air, with industrial production down 3.2% year-on-year in 2025, per De Status. And don't even get me started on the EU's bureaucratic red tape, which strangles small businesses and innovation. The World Economic Forum's 2025 Global Competitiveness Report ranks the Eurozone 18th in ease of doing business, behind even Malaysia. So, where does this leave us? The Eurozone's staring down the barrel of a recession, and the ECB's out of ammo. A strong euro is just the spark that could ignite the powder keg of structural weaknesses, policy blunders, and government mismanagement. Let's look at the data. Eurozone GDP growth is projected to limp along at 0.8% in 2025, down from 1.2% in 2024, according to the OECD. Consumer confidence is at its lowest since the COVID-19 pandemic, with the European Commission's economic sentiment indicator dropping to 94.3 in June 2025. And don't forget the banking sector. Italian banks are still sitting on 120 billion euros in non-performing loans, per the Bank of Italy, making them vulnerable to any economic shock. And here's the cherry on top, while the ECB's busy fretting about the euro, global risks are piling up. China's economy is slowing, with GDP growth projected at 4.5% in 2025, down from 5.2% in 2024, per the IMF, which means less demand for European exports. The US is flirting with a debt ceiling crisis, again, with the Treasury warning that the federal debt could hit $36 trillion by the end of 2025. And climate change? The EU's Green Deal is costing billions, but extreme weather events in 2025, like the floods in southern Germany that caused 10 billion euros in damages, per Munich Re, are wiping out any economic gains. Alright, folks, let's wrap this up with a classic boss economics world smackdown. The ECB and Eurozone governments have spent years kicking the can down the road, papering over cracks with cheap money and empty promises. Now, the euro's strength is exposing their incompetence for the world to see. A strong currency isn't the problem, it's the symptom of an economy that's been mismanaged into a corner. And instead of fixing the real issues, labor market rigidity, energy dependence, bureaucratic bloat, they're just gonna cut rates again and pray for a miracle. Spoiler alert, miracles don't happen in economics, only recessions do. So, to our viewers, whether you're a finance pro or just a regular Joe trying to make sense of this mess, here's the takeaway. The Eurozone's economic woes aren't inevitable, they're man-made. And until the ECB and Eurozone governments stop treating symptoms and start curing the disease, we're all in for a bumpy ride. Keep your eyes peeled, your wallets tight, and your outrage loud, because here at Boss Economics World, we're not afraid to call out the clowns running the circus. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and stay boss.